The council chamber stank of arrogance. Captain Matthew Rains sat rigid in his chair, running his thumb along the edge of the obsidian table before him. The smooth, cold surface reflected the sterile blue lights overhead, casting an eerie glow across the faces of the assembled delegates. Representatives from across the galaxy, Virari, Junoan syndics, Orycth Dominion, Tarkin Technarchs, all gathered in the spiraling Obsidian Council spire on Veros Prime, the seat of the Galactic Council. Matthew's jaw tightened as he glanced at Ambassador Holt, seated beside him. The ambassador's expression remained diplomatically neutral, but Matthew could see the tension in the corners of his eyes. They both knew what was coming. The reports they'd received over the past months had been clear. Despite Earth's pivotal role in defending the core worlds from the Trivar invasion barely a decade ago, the Council had been steadily dismantling their agreements with humanity. Martian trade convoys mysteriously blockaded. Oryx pirate raids on human colonies, raids that intelligence confirmed were Council-backed. The assassination of a Terran ambassador, covered up with insulting transparency. The Council had gone from grateful to contemptuous in the span of a decade. Councillor Drellis, the Virari representative, rose from her seat at the head of the table. Her silver-scaled skin caught the light as she spread her four-fingered hands in what was meant to be a welcoming gesture. "Distinguished representatives of Earth," she began, her voice smooth and cultured, translated perfectly by the implant feed in Matthew's ear. "We have convened today to discuss matters vital to galactic peace and prosperity." Matthew kept his expression neutral, but his teeth clenched tighter. Galactic peace. The term had become a euphemism for Council dominance. "The Council believes," Drellis continued, "that in the interest of maintaining our shared security, Earth should accept certain limitations on its military capabilities." The chamber fell silent. Several delegates exchanged glances. The Orycth representative, Warlord Korak, gave a barely perceptible nod. Syndic Vera of the Junoan leaned forward, eyes bright with anticipation. Drellis smiled, revealing rows of small, pointed teeth. "We are prepared to offer expanded trade opportunities and technological exchange. However," her voice hardened imperceptibly, "we must insist on Earth's compliance with our proposed military restriction treaty. For the greater good of the galaxy." For the greater good of the galaxy, the words echoed in Matthew's mind. Whose galaxy, he thought bitterly. Just 10 years ago, the Virari had begged Earth for help against the Trivar invasion. Now they spoke of restrictions and compliance. Ambassador Holt caught his eye, giving a subtle nod. They had prepared for this moment. Earth's intelligence had anticipated the Council's demands weeks ago. Drellis continued smoothly. "The treaty would require Earth to limit its fleet to no more than 50 strike vessels. All weapons research facilities would be subject to regular inspection, and monitoring stations would be established throughout your solar system to ensure compliance." Matthew's fingers dug into his palm. He knew what those monitoring stations would really be: listening posts, spy networks, the first step toward total control. The chamber quieted as Drellis finished speaking, all eyes turning toward the human delegation. With deliberate slowness, Matthew stood. The movement sent a ripple of tension through the chamber. He straightened his navy blue uniform, the silver Earth insignia catching the light. "Councillor Drellis," he began, his voice measured and steady. "Earth appreciates your concern for galactic peace." A thin smile crossed his face. "However, we must decline your generous offer." Murmurs spread around the table. Drellis's expression froze. "Earth will not surrender its right to self-defense," Matthew continued. "We have respected the peace of the galaxy, even as our trade has been disrupted, our colonies attacked, and our diplomats assassinated." His voice grew sharper with each word. "The treaty you propose is not an agreement between equals. It is a demand for submission." The chamber erupted in voices. Drellis tried to speak, but Matthew raised his voice, cutting through the noise. Earth hereby formally withdraws from these peace talks. We will not be intimidated or coerced. He pushed back his chair, the sound scraping harshly across the chamber. This session is over. Silence fell, heavy and stunned. Several delegates exchanged uneasy glances. Ambassador Holt rose to stand beside Matthew, a subtle show of solidarity. Drellis's mouth opened and closed, her carefully prepared speech suddenly useless. "Captain Rains," she finally managed. "Surely we can continue dialogue." "There is nothing more to discuss," Matthew replied coldly. "Earth has made its position clear." He turned to Holt. "Ambassador, we're leaving." As they strode toward the exit, Matthew could feel every eye in the chamber on his back, a mixture of shock, outrage, and, from a few delegates, what might have been relief. Not everyone, it seemed, had welcomed the Council's increasingly aggressive stance. By the time they reached the transport bay, news of the dramatic exit had already spread. Their implants buzzed with incoming transmissions as StellarNet broadcasts flashed the headline across the galaxy. "Humans withdraw from peace talks. The Galaxy Council admits its blunder. Aboard the ISS Revenant." Matthew stared at the newsfeed, his fingers tight on the console edge. Holt stood beside him, already coordinating with Earth's defense forces. "Prepare contingency plans for withdrawal to Sol orbit," Holt instructed. "We should anticipate the possibility of Council military action." Matthew nodded grimly. The die was cast. For better or worse, Earth had taken its stand. The docking bay was chaos. Carrion fleet vessels, a mix of medium to heavy escort ships, were preparing for departure. But traffic control was experiencing technical difficulties. The delay was obviously Council-orchestrated, buying time for whatever response they had planned. Lieutenant Vaughn's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, we have movement. A Virari cruiser and 2 Oryx frigates are approaching our position. Weapon systems active." Matthew leaned forward in his command chair. "Any signals? Hails? Requests for dialogue?" "None, sir. They're just coming." Matthew exchanged glances with Holt. "They're trying to blockade us," he said quietly. "They never expected us to walk away. Now they want to make an example of us." Commander Briggs, his tactical officer, spoke up from her station. "Orders, Captain." Matthew's mind raced through the options. Submit and return to the negotiations table, on the Council's terms. Fire first and confirm the Council's narrative that humans were dangerous aggressors. Or ECM sweep, he ordered. "Prepare defensive armaments. Plot a course through the blockade." "Sir," Briggs responded, "if we break through, this becomes an interstellar incident." "It already is. Commander." Matthew's voice was steel. "The question is whether we control the narrative, or they do." The ISS Revenant's engines thrummed to life as the rest of the Carrion fleet followed suit. On the main view screen, the sleek silhouette of the Virari cruiser grew larger, flanked by the more angular Oryx vessels. "They're locking weapons," Vaughn reported, tension evident in her voice. "Return the courtesy," Matthew ordered. "Target the Virari cruiser's forward shield nodes. Precision strike only. I want to disable, not destroy." The bridge fell silent as the targeting systems locked. Matthew could feel the weight of the moment, the first direct military confrontation between Earth and the Council in a decade. "Sir," Briggs said quietly, "this crosses a line we can't uncross." Matthew met her gaze. "They crossed it first, Commander. Fire." The Revenant shuddered as energy beams lanced toward the Virari cruiser. The attack struck with surgical precision, overloading the forward shield node and sending cascading failures through the vessel's defense grid. The cruiser listed to one side, its weapon systems flickering offline. "Full thrust," Matthew ordered. Push through the gap, now! The human fleet surged forward, slipping through the opening before the Oryx frigates could reposition. Energy bursts from the frigates scorched the Revenant's shields, but failed to penetrate. "Hyperdrive active," Briggs reported. "Ready to jump on your mark." "Jump," Matthew commanded. Space warped around them as the fleet escaped into hyperspace, leaving the disabled Council vessels behind. The first battle had been fought, and Earth had won. But Matthew knew this was only the beginning. Hours later, as they approached Sol orbit, the Council's response came through on all channels. Earth forces have impulsively withdrawn from peace negotiations and fired upon Council peacekeeping vessels. The Council has no choice but to enact a temporary blockade of human territories until stability can be restored. These unstable aggressors must be contained for the safety of all galactic citizens. Matthew switched off the broadcast in disgust. The propaganda war had begun. President Langley of EarthGov appeared on Visicast shortly after, her face resolute as she addressed the citizens of Earth and its colonies. Today, Earth acted responsibly in the face of Council intimidation. We withdrew from negotiations only after it became clear that the Council sought not peace, but submission. When our delegation attempted to depart, Council vessels fired upon them without provocation. We will not be bullied or coerced. I call on all citizens to remain calm as we mobilize our defensive forces to protect our colonies. Throughout the Earth Alliance, military reserves were being activated. Civilian ships were retrofitted for support roles. Medical facilities were placed on high alert. Earth was preparing for war. The distress call from Sigma Eridani came 3 days later. "Emergency. This is Colonial Authority Sigma Eridani. We are under attack by Oryx raiders. The administrative center is burning. Civilian casualties are..." The transmission cut off in a burst of static. "How long until we can reach them?" Matthew demanded, striding onto the bridge of the Revenant. 3 hours at maximum speed, Vaughn replied. "But sir, there's a hyperspace corridor back up at the Epsilon Gate. Council's saying it's a navigation hazard." "Convenient," Holt muttered from behind Matthew. "The Council's fingerprints are all over this." By the time the Revenant arrived in Sigma orbit, it was too late. The colonial defense stations were shattered, satellites drifted in pieces, and the settlements below burned, thousands of civilians dead. The planetary defense system had collapsed under the overwhelming assault. Matthew stood at the viewport, staring down at the devastation. Sigma Eridani had been a thriving colony, one of Earth's most successful outer settlements. Now it was a graveyard. "Dispatch all available medical ships," he ordered, his voice hollow. "And send word to every carrion vessel in the region. Hunt down any Oryx ship you find." "No quarter." Briggs approached cautiously. "Sir, if we retaliate against the Oryx, the Council will claim we're escalating." Matthew turned, his eyes cold. "They want war? We'll show them what humanity is capable of." The carrion fleet established a defensive perimeter around Sigma, intercepting several fleeing Oryx vessels. Some surrendered, others were destroyed. The StellarNet broadcasts spread the news. Earth exacts vengeance for Sigma Eridani massacre. Operation Iron Shield was activated within days. Solarian task forces were deployed to protect border colonies, Tahiti, Delta Leonis, Gamma Triangula. Earth military units coordinated with colonial defense forces, establishing anti-orbital defense systems and gathering intelligence on Council supply lines. The first major offensive came at Delta Leonis. A Tarkin outpost had been established there years ago, serving as a critical logistics hub for Council operations in the sector. Intelligence indicated it was being used to coordinate further attacks on human colonies. The night before the attack, the Revenant and 20 accompanying warships slipped through the Proxima Gate, using experimental stealth field technology to evade detection. The assault was swift and overwhelming. Precision laser torpedoes disabled the outpost's shield generators in minutes. Drop teams secured the command center and data cores, wiping clean the Tarkin's operational intelligence. By the time Council reinforcements arrived, the human fleet was gone, leaving behind a crippled outpost and a clear message: Earth would not be passive. Tarkin outpost destroyed. Council logistics crippled. The news spread across the galaxy. The narrative was shifting. Earth was no longer just a victim. It was becoming a formidable opponent. Then came the unexpected: Ardentia, the interstellar trading hub that had maintained strict neutrality, officially announced its alliance with Earth. The Ardentian Banking Consortium, tired of Council interference in trade routes, offered Earth access to supply lines and financial backing. The human alliance bloc was forming. The Council was stunned. Internal divisions that had been simmering below the surface erupted into open disagreement. Drellis and her faction called for renewed negotiations, arguing that escalation would only strengthen Earth's position. But the hardliners, Korak, Vera, and their supporters, demanded immediate military action against both Earth and Ardentia. "If we do not crush this human rebellion now," Korak declared, "we risk losing control entirely." Meanwhile, other neutral worlds began to reconsider their positions. Many had chafed under Council restrictions for years. The sight of Earth successfully defying the galactic superpower inspired others to contemplate similar independence. The stage was set for the decisive confrontation. The Council fleet assembled above Ardentia was imposing. Over 200 warships, including Verari heavy cruisers, Oryx assault carriers, Junoan dreadnoughts, and Oryx frigates, plus support vessels. Their mission was clear: crush the defensive forces protecting Ardentia, re-establish Council control over the trade hub, and send a message to any world considering alliance with Earth. The defending fleet was considerably smaller: 74 Solarian vessels, 25 Ardentian defense ships, and 8 volunteer vessels from other neutral worlds. They had trained intensively for point defense tactics and were prepared for the asymmetrical battle ahead. "We cannot retreat," Matthew told his officers during the final briefing. "Ardentia has committed to our cause. If we abandon them now, no other world will ever trust us again." The battle began with Ardentia's orbital defense grid, opening fire on the approaching Council vanguard. Railguns and laser batteries destroyed 2 Verari frigates before they could enter effective range. The Council responded with plasma barrages and missile salvos, seeking to overwhelm the defense grid through sheer volume of fire. The majority of the Council's primary vessels surged toward the Earth fleet, aiming to shift the front line away from Ardentia's defenses. "Punch the spearhead," Matthew ordered, implementing their prepared strategy. "Target the Verari command carrier Zarathal. All screening frigates. Deploy flak to intercept Oryx bombers and Junoan fighters. Heavy cruisers. Prepare maximum energy burst when Zarathal's shields cycle." The battle unfolded with brutal efficiency. Screening vessels intercepted incoming fighters, while the heavy cruisers, Revenant, Aegis, and Hammerfall, charged their main weapons. The moment Zarathal's shield cycled to remodulate, all 4 vessels fired simultaneously. The combined energy burst overwhelmed the command carrier's remaining defenses. Its shields flickered and failed completely. A chain reaction caused the hydraulics in Zarathal's reactor to overload, resulting in a catastrophic explosion that sent shockwaves through space. With the command vessel destroyed, the Council formation lost cohesion. Communication between the Junoan and Oryx vessels broke down, and their coordinated attack pattern disintegrated into individual skirmishes. The Earth fleet pressed the advantage, methodically targeting and disabling Council vessels one by one. The battle wasn't without cost. 2 medium cruisers were lost to an Oryx bomb cluster, and Ardentia's defense grid suffered minor damage, but the outcome was decisive. The Council fleet was forced to retreat, leaving Ardentia firmly under Earth's protection. News of the defeat spread rapidly. Earth Fleet repels Council strike at Ardentia. First major Council defeat in open combat. Neutral worlds that had been hesitant to express support now spoke openly. The Council no longer has legitimate authority to force our compliance. Within the Council itself, the divisions grew deeper. Warlord Korak demanded immediate, overwhelming force. If we do not crush Earth now, we will lose all power. Syndic Vera called for punitive action against the Ardentian traitors. Councillor Drellis remained silent, calculating. Further escalation would only drive more neutral worlds into Earth's arms, potentially fracturing the Council beyond repair. But concession was politically impossible. The intelligence from Keller confirmed what Earth had hoped. More neighboring systems were preparing to join the human alliance. The Council was consolidating its remaining forces at Veros Prime, making it their final stronghold. EarthGov's orders were clear. Complete the dismantling of the Council at Veros Prime. Demand unconditional surrender. If refused, eliminate all remaining hostile forces. During fleet briefings, Matthew emphasized the stakes. If Veros Prime falls, the Council collapses, and humanity has the opportunity to reshape the galaxy. But he also warned, this will be the bloodiest battle yet. The final Council defense force at Veros Prime consisted of 23 vessels, mostly Very battlecruisers, Auric the salt carriers, and a handful of Junoan support frigates. They had deployed experimental weapons, sat-link disruptors, and remotely controlled drone swarms. Earth's coalition had grown: 40 Solarian vessels, 15 Ardentian ships, and 10 volunteer vessels from remaining neutral worlds. Their logistics were supported by medical drones and supply equipment provided by Ardentia, along with hybrid fuel technology that maximized energy efficiency. The battle opened with Ardentian RAM, railgun anti-ship batteries, taking out 2 frigates positioned near the planet. Earth vessels launched fighter squadrons to disperse the Council formation. Matthew personally commanded the group targeting the smallest Virari command carrier, aiming to fragment the Council's command structure. What happened next changed the course of the battle entirely. Suddenly, the Council's drone swarms froze in space, becoming inert. Their smaller vessels lost coordinated control, drifting erratically. The Tarkin Technarchs had revealed their hand, and they had sided with Earth. Long-time Council allies. The technology-focused Tarkin had calculated that the Council's authoritarian ambitions had no future. They had deployed their own disruptors, neutralizing Council technology across the battlefield. Without Tarkin support, the Virari vessels found themselves disoriented and outmatched. Most surrendered rather than face destruction. "Retreat!" Warlord Korak's desperate command echoed across communication channels. "The battle is lost," Matthew issued the ceasefire order. "Hold your fire. Hail them on low-vector channels. Offer surrender terms." The response came quickly. Councillor Drellis's voice, stripped of its usual confidence. "Give us 1 hour to arrange terms. We can negotiate." "There is nothing to negotiate," Matthew replied coldly. "Sign the unconditional surrender now, in my presence." Hours later, Drellis appeared on the bridge of the zenith of Veros, her face haggard, her customary arrogance gone. She handed over the surrender document. Immediate dissolution of the Galactic Council, recognition of Earth's sovereignty, and the freedom of all allied worlds. Amnesty for Council members not directly involved in the suppression campaigns. Matthew signed and issued the order. The surrender was displayed across Veros Prime's Grand Plaza. Council authority had collapsed, its leaders scattered or in hiding. On the observation deck of the ISS Revenant, Matthew stared out at the glittering expanse of the galaxy. Victory should have felt sweeter. Briggs approached quietly. "Sir, EarthGov requests your presence at the formation ceremony for the new Alliance Council the day after tomorrow." Matthew nodded silently. Earth had gained the upper hand, but power always came with responsibility. The new Alliance Council, convening in Ardentia capital, presented a stark contrast to the old council chambers. The room was grand, but furnished simply, with delegates from diverse species watching with a mixture of hope and anxiety. President Langley, recently re-elected, addressed the assembly. Earth and its close allies will assume the responsibility of protecting the galaxy, maintaining order based on principles of equality and freedom. The delegates nodded, but undercurrents of dissent were visible. The question hung unspoken in the air. How would Earth avoid becoming just like the council it had replaced? Matthew surveyed the room, his expression thoughtful. "Justice doesn't always need to come at sword point," he murmured. Meanwhile, intelligence reports indicated that a group of former Varari and Oryx warlords were conspiring with pirates in the Rim sector, preparing to launch Operation Phoenix Rebirth, a campaign of revenge against Earth. Matthew and Briggs made a silent vow. "Once peace has been betrayed, we will not be so forgiving again." As the Revenant accelerated toward the Rim sector, Kelvin lights illuminated the darkness through the viewport. The war might be over, but the battle for freedom never truly ended. Councillor Drellis stood alone on the observation platform, overlooking Veros Prime's central district. Once the seat of council power, now it housed the transitional government established under Earth supervision. The silver-scaled Varari had aged visibly in the months since the surrender. Her once pristine ceremonial armor had been replaced by simpler attire, a concession to changing times. "Counselor," a voice spoke from behind her. She turned to find Captain Matthew Rains approaching, his blue Earth uniform now bearing the insignia of the New Alliance. "Captain," she acknowledged with a slight inclination of her head. "Or should I say, Director Rains now." "Captain is fine," Matthew replied, coming to stand beside her at the railing. "Old habits." They stood in silence for a moment, looking out over the city. Drellis finally spoke, her voice quieter than Matthew remembered. "You know they're gathering in the Rim, don't you? Korak, Vera, the others who escaped? They'll never accept Earth's ascendancy." "We know," Matthew said simply. Drellis turned to study his face. "Why did you spare me? I was the face of the Council's oppression." Matthew considered the question. "You were its face, not its heart. And you were the only one who tried to prevent escalation, even if your methods were problematic." A bitter laugh escaped her. "Is that what you tell yourself? That I was the moderate? I signed the order to attack Sigma Eridani." Matthew's expression hardened. "I know. Then why am I still breathing? Because executing you would make us exactly what the Council claimed we were. Violent, vengeful barbarians." Matthew turned to face her fully. "The New Alliance needs to be better than what came before, even when it's difficult. Especially when it's difficult." Drellis looked away. "Your idealism won't last. Power corrupts, Captain. I've seen it happen too many times." "Perhaps," Matthew conceded. "But we can try to delay the inevitable. That's why we've established the Oversight Committee, with representatives from all member worlds, including former Council species." "And you think that will be enough to prevent Earth from becoming the next tyrant?" Matthew's gaze returned to the city below. "Nothing is ever enough, but it's a start." Their conversation was interrupted by Lieutenant Vaughn, approaching urgently. "Captain, we've received intelligence from Keller. Korak's forces have begun moving. 3 colonies in the Rim sector have reported raids." Matthew nodded grimly. "Alert the Revenant. We depart in 2 hours." He turned back to Drellis. "Duty calls, Counselor." As he walked away, Drellis called after him. "They'll never stop fighting you, Captain. Not until they've reclaimed what they believe is theirs by right." Matthew paused, but didn't turn around. "Then they'll never stop fighting." The attack on New Corinth Colony was brutal and swift. Korak's forces, A cobbled-together fleet of former council vessels and pirate ships had struck without warning, overwhelming the minimal defenses and landing ground forces. By the time the Revenant arrived, the main settlement was burning. Civilian casualties numbered in the hundreds. The colonial governor's residence had been specifically targeted, its occupants executed. Matthew stood in the command center, reviewing the damage reports with Commander Briggs. His expression was stone. "This is just the beginning," Briggs said quietly. "Korak wants to prove we can't protect our people." "Where is he now?" Matthew demanded. "Gone. Jumped to hyperspace before we arrived. But we tracked their vector. They're heading toward the Cygnus Drift." Matthew nodded slowly. The nebula would provide cover for their fleet. Difficult to track, even harder to engage. "Your orders, sir?" Matthew was silent for a long moment, weighing options. The political reality was complex. The new alliance was still forming, its authority not yet solidified. A massive military operation might frighten potential allies, confirming fears that Earth would be as aggressive as the former Council. But allowing Korak to continue these raids would cost innocent lives and undermine confidence in the Alliance's ability to protect its members. "Prepare a strike team," he decided. "Small, elite force. We're not going to engage Korak's entire fleet. We're going to capture or eliminate Korak himself." Briggs raised an eyebrow. Surgical rather than overwhelming force. The Council would never have shown such restraint. "We're not the Council," Matthew replied. "That's rather the point." The operation was planned with meticulous care. Intelligence from Keller identified a supply station in the Cygnus Drift where Korak's forces were scheduled to rendezvous. A small team consisting of the Revenant and 2 fast attack vessels would infiltrate the nebula, bypassing the main fleet to strike directly at Korak's command ship. Ambassador Holt, now serving as Earth's representative to the new alliance, expressed concern when informed of the plan. "If this goes wrong, it could undermine everything we've built," he warned during a secure communication. "The diplomatic situation is fragile. Many worlds are still suspicious of Earth's intentions." "And if we do nothing?" Matthew countered. "If we allow Korak to slaughter colonists with impunity, how many allies will stand with us then?" Holt sighed. "Just be careful. Matthew, the galaxy is watching." The nebula was a swirling mass of gases and stellar debris, visibility reduced to near zero. Navigation systems struggled to maintain accuracy as the small Earth flotilla penetrated deeper into the Cygnus Drift. "Radiation levels rising," Vaughn reported from her station. "Shield integrity at 87% and holding—" "Any sign of Korak's fleet?" Matthew asked. "Nothing conclusive. The nebula is interfering with our sensors, but the supply station should be—" "Wait." Vaughn's hands flew over her console. "Contact. Multiple vessels. Bearing 047. The main view screen flickered, showing ghostly outlines of ships through the nebula's haze. "Korak's fleet?" Briggs asked. Vaughn shook her head. "Negative. Configuration doesn't match. These are Tarkin vessels." Matthew frowned. "Tarkin? What are they doing here?" The answer came moments later as a communication request chimed. The screen cleared to show a Tarkin officer, his metallic exoskeleton gleaming in the low light of his bridge. "Captain Rains," the Tarkin greeted formally. "I am Executor Vex of the Tarkin Technarchy. We anticipated your arrival." Matthew exchanged glances with Briggs before responding cautiously. "Executor, this is unexpected. What brings Tarkin forces to the Cygnus Drift?" "The same quarry you seek. Warlord Korak has become inconvenient. His actions threaten the stability of trade routes vital to Tarkin interests." "And you're proposing?" "Cooperation," Vex replied simply. "Our vessels are equipped with sensors specifically calibrated for nebula conditions. Your vessels possess superior tactical capabilities. Together, we can eliminate the threat Korak poses to both our interests." Matthew considered the offer. The Tarkin were notoriously pragmatic, motivated primarily by technological advancement and commercial gain. Their allegiance was to efficiency and profit rather than ideology. If they saw Korak as a threat to their interests, their assistance could be valuable. "Very well," he decided. "We accept your cooperation, Executor. But to be clear, our mission is to capture Korak if possible. Lethal force is authorized only if necessary." Vex's expression remained impassive. "As you wish, Captain. Though I should note that Korak is unlikely to surrender peacefully. With the Tarkin's specialized sensors guiding them, the combined fleet navigated deeper into the nebula. The supply station appeared on scanners, a sprawling structure of interconnected modules, surrounded by a loose defensive formation of former Council vessels. "Korak's command ship?" Matthew asked. "Confirmed," Vex responded over the comm. "The Ferrari cruiser at the station's core docking port. Our intelligence indicates Korak is aboard, coordinating the next wave of attacks." Matthew turned to Briggs. "Options?" "Direct approach is suicide," she replied frankly. "Their defensive position is too strong. But—" She manipulated the tactical display, highlighting a debris field near the station. "If we use this for cover, a small infiltration team could board the station via the maintenance airlock. From there, they could reach Korak's ship." "Who leads the infiltration team?" Vaughn asked. Matthew stood. "I do." Briggs shook her head. "Sir, with respect, you're too valuable to risk—" "This isn't open for debate, Commander." Matthew cut her off. "Korak needs to understand that Earth takes this personally. Besides, I have unfinished business with the warlord." The infiltration proceeded under cover of a diversionary attack, while the Tarkin vessels engaged the outer defensive perimeter, drawing attention away from the debris field. Matthew led a team of 8 Special Forces operatives toward the maintenance airlock. Their approach was tense, but uneventful. The station's external sensors were focused on the Tarkin attack, leaving the small boarding craft undetected as it docked with the airlock. "Boarding successful," Matthew reported over the secure channel. "Proceeding to target." The station's interior was dimly lit and sparsely populated. Most of the crew had been called to battle stations to respond to the Tarkin attack. Matthew's team encountered minimal resistance as they made their way toward the central docking port. "Approaching Korak's vessel," Matthew updated. "Security is heavier here. 4 guards at the main airlock." "Can you bypass?" Briggs asked through the comm. "Negative. Direct approach required." Matthew signaled to his team, deploying them into position. "Engaging now." The firefight was brief but intense. The guards were elite Oryx warriors, heavily armored and well-trained, but Earth Special Forces were equally skilled, and they had the element of surprise. Within moments, the guards were neutralized, and the team was accessing the airlock. Korak's ship was a study in opulence, a stark contrast to the utilitarian supply station. Gold-inlaid panels lined the corridors, and exotic trophies from conquered worlds adorned the walls. The warlord had clearly diverted significant resources to maintain his lifestyle, even in exile. They found Korak on the bridge, surrounded by his personal guard. The Oryx warlord was massive, his armored exoskeleton adding to his already imposing stature. His face was a mass of scar tissue and cybernetic implants, souvenirs from countless battles. "Captain Rains," Korak rumbled, his voice artificially deepened by his vocal enhancers. "I should have expected Earth's attack dog would come personally." Matthew stepped forward, weapon raised. "Warlord Korak, by authority of the new alliance, you are under arrest for war crimes against civilian populations. Surrender peacefully, and you will receive a fair trial." Korak laughed, the sound like grinding metal. I do not recognize your new alliance or its authority. The Council may have fallen, but others will rise to replace it. Earth's dominance is temporary, a footnote in galactic history. Perhaps, Matthew acknowledged. But right now, it's reality. And in this reality, you're facing charges for the massacre at New Corinth. Korak's expression darkened. Those colonists were occupying Oric's ancestral territory. Their deaths were justice, not murder. Tell that to the children who died in the governor's residence, Matthew replied coldly. Last chance, warlord. Surrender, or face the consequences. For a moment, it seemed Korak might comply. Then, with surprising speed for his bulk, he activated a control on his armor. Warning klaxons blared throughout the ship. Self-destruct sequence initiated, announced an automated voice. Detonation in 60 seconds. Predictable, Matthew sighed, then spoke into his comm. All units, evacuate immediately. Briggs, we need emergency extraction. Korak's guards moved to block their retreat, but Matthew's team responded with practiced efficiency. Precision shots disabled the guards without killing them, clearing the path to the airlock. 30 seconds to detonation, the automated voice continued. You cannot escape, Korak called after them. And even if you do, others will continue what I began. The galaxy will never accept human rule. Matthew paused at the threshold, looking back at the warlord, who remained defiantly on his bridge. It's not rule we're offering, Korak. It's partnership. That's what you never understood. The team evacuated with seconds to spare. As their boarding craft detached from the doomed vessel, Matthew watched through the viewport as Korak's ship erupted in a blinding explosion, taking a significant portion of the supply station with it. Korak, Briggs asked over the comm. Gone, Matthew confirmed. He chose to die rather than face justice. Was it worth it? Briggs pressed. We've eliminated one warlord, but as he said, others will take his place. Matthew was silent for a long moment as their craft returned to the Revenant. We've sent a message, he finally replied. Not just to the warlords, but to every colony under Alliance protection. We will defend our people, no matter the cost. As the Revenant prepared to depart the nebula, Matthew received a communication from Executor Vex. An efficient operation, Captain, the Tarkin observed. Korak's elimination will stabilize commerce in this sector. That wasn't the primary objective, Matthew replied. But I'm glad it serves Tarkin interests. Vex studied him curiously. You continue to perplex us, Captain Rains. You possess overwhelming military superiority, yet you exercise remarkable restraint. The Council would have destroyed the entire station, regardless of civilian casualties. As I told Korak, we're not the Council. Indeed, Vex paused. The Technarchy will be watching with interest to see how long Earth maintains this philosophical distinction. Power has a way of eroding principles. So I've been told, Matthew responded dryly. Safe travels, Executor. As the communication ended, Matthew returned to the observation deck, gazing out at the swirling nebula. Drellis's warning echoed in his mind. They'll never stop fighting you. Perhaps she was right. Perhaps the galaxy would never truly accept the new order Earth was trying to build. But the alternative, returning to the Council's methods of intimidation and dominance, was unacceptable. There had to be a better way forward, even if it was the harder path. Lieutenant Vaughn found him there, pausing respectfully before speaking. Sir, President Langley is requesting your presence at the official charter signing for the new alliance. Representatives from 17 formerly neutral worlds will be attending. Matthew nodded. Tell her I'll be there. Also, sir. Vaughn hesitated. Intelligence reports increased activity in the Rim sector. It appears Syndic Vera is attempting to rally Korak's remaining forces. The cycle of conflict continued. One battle won, another looming on the horizon. Matthew wondered if there would ever truly be peace, or if humanity had simply exchanged one endless struggle for another. "Your orders, sir," Vaughn prompted. Matthew straightened his uniform, his resolve hardening. "Set course for Earth. We have a charter to sign." He paused. "And begin preparations for a diplomatic mission to the Rim sector. Let's see if Syndic Vera can be reasoned with before we're forced to repeat today's events." "Diplomatic mission?" Vaughn's surprise was evident. "After what happened at New Corinth?" "Especially after New Corinth," Matthew replied firmly. "Violence must be the last resort, not the first response. That's the difference between us and the Council." He smiled thinly. "Besides, diplomacy doesn't preclude having the fleet ready if negotiations fail." As the Revenant accelerated toward Earth, leaving the nebula behind, Matthew considered the long road ahead. Building a new galactic order would take more than military victories. It would require patience, wisdom, and an unwavering commitment to the principles Earth claimed to represent. The Council had fallen because it had forgotten that power derived from the consent of the governed, not merely from force of arms. Earth would not make the same mistake. At least, that was the hope. In the darkness of space, the Revenant's engines glowed like a beacon, illuminating the path forward, uncertain, challenging, but full of possibility. The war might be over, but the real work of peace was just beginning.